Welcome, welcome. I'm not trying to make this super special. It's just pretty much us having our private conversation in front of everyone. So thank you very much for joining me today. Uh, in pretty like unofficial fashion, I would say. Just we had our conversation last week. We all were at the Directions in Vienna, and in those conversations, we were very positive, very optimistic about this new experience that Directions brought us. Uh, and then later on, Chris posted the very nice post on LinkedIn, and it really inspired me to to have this conversation on camera, so we can show some love to all the Direction folks, but also to talk a bit about the experience that we had, because for most of us it was very new experience. The whole business central world was something really unknown. So maybe for those that don't know us, I think that will be majority of the audience. If we could, go around the table and maybe introduce ourselves and say a bit more about the background and where we're coming from, and then let's just start talk about the directions. And I'll start with the Yannick, my favorite one. So Yannick, go ahead.
Oh,
Your favorite. Oh, thanks.
well, now you know, folks. So I'm Yannick Reekmans. I work for Cubics in Belgium, which is a consulting company doing everything Power Platform. And it was not my first time at Directions. It was my second time, actually. So I was asked by Directions to invite my friends over there. And I'm very much looking forward to hearing about their experiences for the first time at Directions. But first of all, let's move on to Chris for some introductions. But he still has to unmute.
Yo. No, I should be off mute now. Hey guys, I'm on a train, so this is going to get interesting. But first of all, Jacob, thanks for sorting this out. And Yannick, I need to give you a shout out, dude, because thank you for roping us into that community. It was one of the most truly unique experiences, not only because of the amounts of content, but also the way that these people party and like actually celebrate what they do. It was wild, man. Like, and not wild isn't crazy. Like, it was actually cool to see people thoroughly enjoying themselves and getting out there. So yeah, and thank you, man. And so who am I? So I'm Chris. I'm director of AI at a company in the UK. So I work for a Microsoft partner, and I run around the world yelling about why AI and Power Platform and anything else that's technical is important. So that's my role. Thank you, guys. And do I pass on to Nick, I guess?
All right, cool. Thanks, Chris. So yeah, my name is Nick Doelman. I call myself a Power Platform specialist. I'm an independent. I work on projects all over the world. I love to travel, talk about this stuff, kind of evangelize all the cool things. Yeah, and the Directions conference for me was first time I was there as well. I found it very interesting. It reminded me, because earlier in my career, I did a lot of work with now known as Microsoft Dynamics GP, which of course is now end of life, but it's still a very similar product to what BC is. And they were actually competitors very early on in the process. So that whole Directions kind of was a bit of a throwback to me, because it's like, this very much reminded me about how the old Great Plains, conventions and stuff used to be, because we've now kind of moved into, but now we're moving into more, obviously it's much more modern and cloud and everything like that. So very interesting, kind of like, wow, some of it's changed, but a lot of it has stayed the same. And then just being able to always integrate this with the Power Platform and the unlimited possibilities. And of course, yeah, seeing all the agent stuff and everything like that, which is just sort of perpetrating all of our business applications. So exciting times. So yeah, Abby, you're next.
Everyone calls me Appy, especially when we're among friends. So Appy. I'm the CDO at Bliss. It's a Dutch company, and we focus on full and low-code Fusion dev stuff. For me, it was the first time Directions. It was super cool to see the B side of things, even though it's this whole different world. We did some integration projects with Oracle stuff, and it feels kind of like the same vibe. It's different, but kind of like the same. So it's really cool to learn a bit more about what BC can do, what it can bring. At the same time, it like low code or Power Platform is in the BC realm. So it's kind of weird that it was the first time that we're being here experiencing this side of the world, but it's really, really cool. So, and with that, guess I'm gonna give it back to Jakub.
Yeah, I mean, I think that we have to relabel this discussion as not the first timers for directions. It's just Yannick and first timers. So with 100% on point, because Yannick hates when it's not 100%, as it should be. But let me come back to the some of the points made here, like especially maybe with Yannick, because you remember Yannick first next session, where we actually met in the morning. I actually, leaned towards you and I was like, what do you know about Business Central? So that was my very scared question in the morning, because, I can read, of course, and I know people, but it's different to read something and to actually feel like you know something. And you kind of gave me the same answer, like I'm somewhere in between where I know stuff, but there is no confidence, and we like to be confident about the stuff that we do. So this is your second time. You are the reason for most of us being there. How do you see it now, and how do you see the transition probably from that first year to second year?
Well, there has been a lot of growth. The first time that I participated at any of their conferences was Days of Knowledge, which is one of their smaller conferences that they put around in the world. They have one in Germany, they have one in the UK, they have one in Denmark. And I did those three, and it's a very different world there. I showed up on my first conference in my jeans and a t-shirt presenting there, and I felt very underdressed with the ERP crowd. They tend to show up nicer dressed in a dress shirt and dress pants and all of that. So I took notice of that. And in terms of audience, it seems like it has grown as well over the years. The first time it was a very small audience, and you attract the very specific people that are interested in the topic, that have already learned about it. Last year at Directions, same thing, smaller group. And now I've seen this year the interest of the BC attendees has grown. But it's also probably because in the last year, 50% of the things that Microsoft talked about in relationship to BC was Power Platform and how it could integrate, and all of the new functionality was there. The other 50%, of course, being AI. That led to a bigger crowd at sessions, but also I think something that we have to keep in mind is that they are very, very early in their stages of moving into Power Platform and using Power Platform. Whereas last year our sessions were specific, detailed, a bit more advanced. This year we had the same type of sessions, because that what worked for the specific crowd last year. But now we attracted more people that needed level 100, that are very early in their process. So that's something that I learned this year after content selection, that we need more level 100 to guide the people. They have an interest, they're not there yet. And they need an intro in everything at this point.
Yeah, I mean,
does everyone agree?
That's a good point, especially about the dress code that you mentioned, because for me there is a huge palette of experience. On one hand, there is a direction where you have to actually look proper, and on the other hand, there is my memory of South Coast Summit when I remember Chris vividly dressed as a squirrel. So you have all kinds of experiences, right?
Don't knock the squirrel outfit, dude. That thing was that. I just want to tell you, whatever was going on underneath that was not pleasant. I just want to throw it out there. Like it wasn't good. But I agree with you, dude.
It's about sacrifices, right?
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. The sacrifices we make, my friend. But I agree with Yannick. I think that one of the mistakes I made was I went too deep in one of my sessions, but actually the audience was small, but they really loved it. But I did a purview session, man, and they wow. The people in there, I only had like maybe 15 people, but let me tell you, afterwards they all hit me up and they were like, holy smokes. So I think like there is opportunity to go deep, but it's niche, right? So don't expect a mob of people, but the people you will get, and that's what I learned at this conference, the people that you will get will follow up, man. Let me tell you, they will follow up. And that's the thing I loved about it, is that when we ask people to do something, these people will do it. And I'm like, okay, lessons were learned that day. So again, man, like I am 1000% humbled by the fact that these people hold me accountable, and I think it's good.
And I think that was pretty cool also when we met some of the folks at our booth. They were so willing to share their credentials right away, connect on LinkedIn, and stay in that conversation. And they were actually, from like a second sentence, describing what they're trying to accomplish. And they were very humble. Like, I remember at least 5 conversations that started like, we just launched our Power Platform team. We don't know nothing. We're trying to do something, what we can do. So I ended up actually not even talking about what we as a Resco do in Power Platform. I just, consulted basic Power Platform stuff, or I sent them towards Nick's session so Nick can help them, because, that's power in the Power Platform is Nick Doelman. Nick, go ahead. How you had more sessions? What was your experience? Because I attended, I think, most of those. How did you feel about that?
Yeah, it was good. I had 2 sessions. It was interesting because one was extending Business Central using Power Pages. So, and I even maybe I've even admitted, I don't know a lot. I've not worked with Business Central all that much. So for me, it was a case of I needed to get ramped up on the Business Central side, but I was able to take my knowledge and experience with Power Pages and basically kind of, tie into something they knew and hopefully opened up a whole new world for them of possibilities of extending what they're doing in something in Power Pages and how it works and how it can be configured and how things can be securely. And I also did my regular my intro Power Pages session the following day, but hitting those points, I've done that so many times. I know the questions people ask. I know the concerns that they have. They're going to ask about security. They're going to ask about licensing. They're going to want to know how easy it is to set this up. So those types of things. So that was really interesting. And you're absolutely right. Like I had at least after that first session, like 10 people lined up asking me questions. I've had questions coming in on LinkedIn. Sometimes you do a session, you don't hear anything ever again. And this time it was like, people coming through, asking questions, following up. And it wasn't that I found that I missed anything in my presentation. It was just more continuing on and extending that conversation a little bit further. Now, unfortunately, I was trying to get some questions back to Microsoft as well. The whole integration still has that preview tag on it. I'm kind of like, okay, guys, when is that preview tag going to drop so we can give some confidence for these customers to be able to roll this out in the real world? Hopefully that will come very soon. But yeah, it was exciting because it's Business Central, I don't want to call it its own closed box or whatever, but it is. ERPs are very much, you come in, you're following generally accepted accounting practices. Debits have to equal credits, GL, profit loss statements. Like it's very, whether you're running a lemonade stand or a multi-billion-dollar corporation, accounting systems more or less operate the same. And there's a certain set of parameters, but there's always that whole circle of unique business processes. And a lot of times that ERP system is the central. And it looks really good that we can extend things with Power Pages or Power Automate or other Power Apps. And then, of course, now with the whole AI and the governance as well, and trying to deploy all these pieces kind of become hubs or spokes to that hub, which is Business Central. So that's what I found very interesting. And when I was doing my stuff, it's now you're thinking beyond your accounting system. What more can this do for our business?
But I do wonder how this will change all of those people, because what Chris said and what you say about this community or these people that attended, and without disrespect to any of them, they are very untainted. They have their Business Central, this is what they do. They have their ERP processes, it's one product. And now they don't really have to deal with things like Entra ID, Purview, Copilot Studio, Power Platform, anything of that. But now they're slowly move towards that in the cloud. The way that we have to been like for the last 10 years now, or we're required to start thinking more broadly about cloud, about all the interacting systems, about security. And now they will have to do as well. And they're very early in the stages of that. So I wonder how this will change the people, because they're currently blissfully unaware and happy in their BC space. And that's cool to see. It's fresh air to me, because I'm sometimes very much overwhelmed by all the integrations and all the interacting components within the Microsoft Cloud at the moment?
For me, it reminded me a bit on the, let's say I'm from the SharePoint side of things. So I started out doing SharePoint, I don't know, SharePoint 23 or something like that. So at some point we got BPOS and then we got Office 365 and then M365, but we went through all these circles where Microsoft took away some of the flexibility that we had in doing everything ourselves. We had to sacrifice that in order to get new things and move to the cloud and doing more cloud native solutions. And now we're at a point in Power Platform where we've done stuff in Azure. We've done things with Purview, Audit Logs, all the cloud concepts are in there and we use them all, or at least most of them, I guess. But if you're from the BC world, you're I'm not saying that you're at really at the beginning. There has been work done by Microsoft to move you to the cloud, and there's BC in the cloud, and there's a lot of stuff in there. But it's way earlier in that cycle, so it's interesting to see do they have to go through the same hoops, or can we help them with the things that we've learned and the best practices that we had? So I talked about the whole Copilot Studio thing, and just building an integration in Copilot Studio is not that hard. But at the same time, all of a sudden, you have to start thinking about, okay, but what does that mean for my data? Am I gonna expose all my ERP data to the whole world? Or how can I do security? How can I do governance? How can I make sure that whatever I'm deploying, that it ends up at the customers that we are having? So that means, I don't know, Power Pages with B2C potentially, or B2B if you want to. It's really interesting. So there were a lot of discussions during the conference outside of the sessions that I attended where indeed these discussions happened. And yeah, it was really interesting to see that.
Yeah, these people are getting confronted with possibilities. Don't want to call them challenges or frustrations that they haven't had to deal with yet, because they're mostly staying into their product, and now they venture outside, and it's interesting to see how they will do that, and if they can easily take over the best practices that other people have put out in the world.
Well, they'll definitely
sounds vaguely familiar, right?
Yeah, it feels familiar. We've been through that, apparently.
Yeah, it feels like we've done this before. Yeah, it feels like this is now our fourth rodeo, I think, which is interesting, right? Because okay, I want to give an example here. If I hadn't gone to several conferences, Yannick, I wouldn't have met you, okay? And you come from a different world to me, okay? But it's quite interesting because you have helped me on calls many times solve many problems. And actually, it was totally out of my wheelhouse, but now that I've started to learn a lot more, I've grown my skill set into Azure, as Abby was saying, Azure, across the Dynamics stack into SharePoint and things. So it's that community integration, I think that's really important, but it's also wanting it. I think that the group of people on this call are extremely proud to share knowledge of the things that they've gone through to make sure other people don't have to have that same battle.
That is probably the coolest thing about
I
it.
like it.
Yeah, we kind of we drawn a picture where they'll probably have to go through the things that we went through, but with one difference, they have us now, because we were pushed to, through most changes. They were just okay, ready or not ready, you'll just figure it out. But now they have the full ecosystem of just, excited people. They can help them through the transition. So I think for them is just the readiness, the timing is just exactly what it should be. Because when you look at all the presentation, Business Central, the Microsoft, a bunch of presentations on go-to-market, right? And they were presenting some results from the last fiscal, and the pace is unbelievable. They're big already, and they're growing so fast. And probably this is their advantage, that they were the technically last ones moving that directions, but now everyone who's already there can help them, which was exciting because they were so willing to be helped.
Exactly. It's what you see with what Appie said on the SharePoint side. I have a background in SharePoint as well. SharePoint was one of the first to move into the cloud with BPOS, Office 365, M365. 2015, 2016, 2017 is when this thing was okay, it's getting stable, it's good. Well, it was earlier that it went into the cloud, but that's when it became stable. And that's also the time when Dynamics 365 moved from on-prem into the cloud. And that took a couple of years to mature. And those people have had to go through the same changes, the same adaptations, the same things as the SharePoint people did to adapt to the cloud world. And then I'm talking Dynamics 365 sales, customer service, the whole CE thing. Whereas then Business Central, it has been in the cloud for a while, SaaS, BC SaaS, but it's only in the last, 2 years, maybe 3, that people are actually moving using BC SaaS because it's getting there, or that's my feeling looking from the outside. And they're going through the same things that already we went through twice.
Yeah, but I think that makes sense, right? There is this, I think it's a model from Gartner where they have like systems of innovation, system of records, and then system of records are things like ERP that you design, I don't know, once, implement, and then keep running for 10 years. So it's not that weird, at least not in my mind, that if you had a BC implementation, that it's going to take a while for you to move to the cloud, because it's not something that you do every year. You do that, I don't know, maybe once every 5 to 10 years. So coming from there, totally makes sense to me.
Yeah, and it has never been lift and shift to move into the cloud. They have been saying that, let's do lift and shift, but I've never seen any system go lift and shift, except maybe VMs in Azure, but then it would have cost you tons of money to do that. So everyone wants to redesign their system when they move into the cloud.
I think, Yannick, I've seen it in Microsoft presentations. There are slide decks about how to do lift and shift. So it's definitely possible and easy. So
yeah, I forgot you had a background in Microsoft sales.
Yeah. It's interesting you talk about getting into the cloud and things like that, and there's the whole shift. And to me, it's I haven't touched an on-prem system in years, and I pretty much would refuse to. If somebody even approached me with an on-prem project, I wouldn't touch it with a 10-foot pole. What I found interesting, like when I started doing, that's when I had my business with CRM Online came available, I think 2007 or 2008. Of course, it only had a very small subset of features of what you could get on the on-prem version. So a lot of people were still, it just wouldn't make sense for a lot of installations we did. So we still did a lot of on-prem back then. But what I did with a lot of my smaller customers who are still that mindset of, we want to see the servers, we want to have it installed locally. And then once we started going through the budget, especially for CRM, you needed to have pretty beefy hardware. You needed an SQL server, you needed, an IIS server, you needed at least 2 or 3 servers to properly do this. A lot of times that used to take up a huge chunk of budget. So I don't want to say I tricked people into the cloud, but this is what I did. I said, let's start with CRM Online. Let's start, getting comfortable, getting this implemented, whatever. And at that time, Microsoft did have a procedure that you could actually download your database and install it on a local system. I said, let's get your CRM up and running in the cloud. Once you're comfortable, once you see that people are going to use it and you're comfortable with it, then we'll move it to on-prem to your, then you can buy your servers at that time in the next, the next budget cycle or whatever else. So of all those customers, guess how many I moved from the cloud to on-prem? Yeah, 0, 0. Everybody was like, wow, this is actually pretty cool. We don't need to buy all these servers. We don't need to spend all this stuff. We can actually pay a monthly fee and get access and pretty much all the same features and functionalities. And at certain times when their own servers went down in their own office, it's like this kept on running. So be interesting sort of to see, especially if the again, BC is in the cloud already, but that whole mindset of shifting to new technologies, it's sometimes just being a little bit ahead of the curve helps, because then you realize it's not as chaotic as you think it would be.
I also think that now we're in times when there is just the greatest bait to get customers to cloud, because we used to present it as like there are operational and economic benefits to moving to cloud, but now there is AI waiting in the cloud for you.
Yeah.
I remember we used to have the offering at Microsoft, like we had these containers of AI for on-prem, which were cool, but not as cool as, let's do some Arc, let's do some hybrid, and let's run some AI. And everybody was super excited about it. So I don't think it's like tricking them to cloud. It's mostly like you're removing specific friction because you know that's where it's gonna go. So, but Rick, I have one question that that popped up to my mind. Chris, he's traveling around the world. He's doing evangelism for AI. Yannick is running pretty much the whole company. So we're all somehow tied to our companies. But you are a freelancer, and now with this experience of Business Central, were you thinking about maybe trying to reach out this community and add this to your portfolio? Maybe you had a success with the session on Power Pages and Business Central, so maybe were you thinking about expanding that also in your offering as a freelancer, because you do a lot of stuff, so who knows?
Probably. I wouldn't see myself being an expert in BC anytime soon. Although you say you never know, because I find in this industry you don't get to pick the technology that you go. It picks you sometimes. Definitely, I'm open to help out folks on the Power Pages, the Power Platform journey tying into that. But again, I'm finding you just can't, like in the early CRM days. Yes, you could do everything. I did everything. You have to be very, I would say niche. You do need some general knowledge, but you do have to have your specializations. And for me, I think I'm with everybody. My headspace these days is definitely in the Copilot, the agents, getting that incorporated, enhancing the stuff I already know with that. That would be the main focus. But if someone came to me and said, hey, we have Business Central, we want to implement Power Pages. Yeah, depending on, of course, capacity is always king there, right? And I'm very protective of my capacity the older I get. So, but that would be something I wouldn't be adverse to, but I would also rely on other partners to do the BC side or other people that I know. And that's the great thing about our community is there's huge opportunities for collaboration. And I've collaborated with a lot of people in our community. And this is why I like staying so much involved. To me, it's just sort of like, I don't need to do any kind of sales and marketing. It's just because within the community and the networking itself, I have more than enough work to keep me busy.
Yeah, but the title of a specialist, like it's not in our world in CRM and Power Platform. It means something else to be specialist, because as we established, this is completely new perspective of BC and everything else. So maybe if you get the same question twice, you're already specialist in this topic, and that's ball gets rolling.
Half a page in the manual ahead of everybody else. That
yeah, exactly. Because if everybody's starting, the guys that is there 2 days is specialist.
Yeah, and on top of that, the way that I see like my company Cubics doing Power Platform is that we are the connecting piece, and this must be for about every Power Platform consulting or SI in the world. It's like we're the connecting piece between systems, because it's one of the easiest ways to integrate multiple systems into one coherent experience. And as a result of that, I will never ever be a BC specialist, just as much as I will not be an F&O, finance and operations specialist, but I understand, or a Salesforce for that matter, if we go outside the Microsoft world. But I've connected with all three of them now. I have built stuff in Power Platform to connect with all three of them. And I strongly believe that you cannot connect two systems if you do not have at least a certain knowledge about the other side of things, because otherwise you will fail massively. So it does require the will and the investment to go look at what the other side is doing to make sure that you're building good applications or good integrations between the platforms.
And this is why conferences like Directions is so important, to have this mix of people, because you can learn at least as much as you need to know about the other side of the equation, to have those good conversations and understand, okay, I know this, but I know you're the expert that can dive deep into that, so I can rely on you and we can share information and then come together.
For me, it's important to be able to meet with a customer that mentions ERP, that I can have a 15-20 minute intelligent conversation about F&O or BC that doesn't make me look stupid, but also doesn't make me say stupid things, to then direct them to a specialist company or a sister company or whatever that's focused on this technology. But if you have to say after 1 minute, I know nothing about this, that will be, it's not easy in this fully connected Microsoft cloud. Customers are starting to expect you to know at least what is out there, in my opinion.
Yeah. Well, if you have a discussion with a customer on, let's say, BC, and the first thing you have to say, oh, I know that it exists, but I have no clue whether we can connect with it or not, then it's going to be a short conversation. If you are able to say, okay, I'm not going to implement BC for you, but I know enough to understand how to retrieve data or write back data, whether it's virtual tables or connectors or whatever you're going to use. Like, if you can have that conversation, you know enough. And it's the same for Dynamics, Oracle, like whatever system you're going to integrate with, you'll have to have that basic knowledge of knowing some of the data structure, knowing some of the functionality in the system, and at least good enough to have that discussion or an initial discussion.
Yeah, it goes. It's very much like, I think a lot of times they talk about where we're running this system that you may have never heard for. The very first question out of my mouth is always, is there a connector for it? And I will look through the list of connectors to see what's available there. And if there's not, does it have the REST API that we can build a custom connector for it? Or is it like within the Microsoft family? For sure, there's a much tighter integration through virtual tables and things like that. So yeah, it's like everything else. It's just kind of, at least we have this, I think, this standard way of connecting to different things. That's, I think, a lot where our specialists and our knowledge lies. But always, then we have the experts on each side of the equation, and then we can all come together.
Yeah, and I'm not saying that I want to be at 7 BC conferences a year. That would be way out of my comfort zone. But like 1 or 2 a year, and a couple of sessions at those events to make sure that I'm up to date on what this product is doing and where it's going and everything. I think that's important.
Yeah, I agree. That's why I went to this one, right? Other than the amazing rumors of how awesome the people were, it was also because I wanted to learn. And my friend, I don't know if you know Andy Wingate. He's awesome, man. This guy, he's a BC dude.
I met Andrew there.
Okay. Yeah, no, it was cool because I get to work with him now on a customer deal, and I would never have had the opportunity to do that in the past. And there's that. And the other thing I just wanted to chuck out there was you mentioned, what are we focusing on? I think a good thing is responsible AI. And the reason is because it affects all platforms. And now I'm starting to get people asking me questions about all this, and I'm all, hold up. Before it was just, first in the beginning it was Dynamics people, then it was Power Platform people, then it was SharePoint folk, now it's BC people. I mean, it's amazing, right? So I'm just using it as an opportunity to spread the love.
But interesting, you talk about everybody's asking about AI. Remember like 6 months ago, everybody was worried AI is going to take our jobs. Man, AI is now giving us more work than we can take.
Yes. We want to build something with AI. Where is your data? I have no clue. Okay, that's going to be an interesting conversation. Is it secure? I don't know. Copilot is showing people things that it shouldn't be showing. Oh, yeah, we need to work on that.
And then the next phase, like after next week, after Ignite and all of this stuff about autonomous agents comes out. I mean, I have a list in my own one-man business that I want to autonomize. And this is for larger businesses. It's just going to explode. So I think we're employable for at least the next 6 months anyway, if not longer.
Well, I don't think the autonomous agents they will make life easier, but for people like us in consulting, we have a couple of years left before we're being replaced, for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, I almost thought you were going to be positive, Yannick, but
it was positive.
Yeah. We have couple years. The couple years, that part is positive. Yeah, I understand. No,
Nick's at 6 months. I say a couple of years.
Yeah.
How am I the negative one?
Yeah, I just wanted to add that for me, it's kind of interesting how emotionally difficult it is to be very aware of the technology now, because at one moment you're looking at some presentation, you're looking at the demo, you're super excited, as we like to say, right, Nick? We're super excited.
Yep, super excited.
And then in a couple seconds, as you start writing down all the ideas that you have that you want to do with it, you automatically traumatized because I'm never going to do this. There is no time in the world that could help me to accomplish this. So that is a tough one. Definitely it is. I mean, I like the excitement. I think we don't sleep well. We work hard. We do sports. We have families. So there's not many things that really give you true energy in the workplace. And I think that I really appreciate. I'm very grateful that that we're in the middle of this like super interesting stuff, like in the front lines. And I think that every single revolution, every single change, like with the newspaper, with the book, like there was always some negative thoughts. There was always some. Everybody was worried, like people so will stop talking because now everybody's reading newspapers on a bus, right? And these sort of things. Like, and also I think that the Chris said a very nice like thought in Mark Smith's podcast that's on YouTube, and it was like most of the fear that is around the AI is kind of created by media because we have so much work, and like you said, Yannick, I mean, there are so many problems and issues, even with simple deployments, that there is still many years before it will be even like efficient in the way it's trying to help us. So that's why I think that we now have a time and space to be just excited about this, and overall, to maybe to wrap up some of the other comments, I think it's so cool from organizer of Directions that they invited so many people that are foreign to this world. Like that is very unique because most of the conference they're just trying to provide the best lineup for very specific topics. Just they're trying to race each other, like who's going to have a better specialist for something advanced. Or I remember some of the presentations of Salesforce on recent conferences, like, don't make buying decisions based on this presentation. This is all vision. So they're trying to just be the first one. And this is kind of like different. Like let us surprise you with what you're gonna see. It's totally foreign to whatever you're used to, but it's very important for you.
Yeah, it was very, very interesting that we got I did the content selection together with Louise Freze, and we got blank check essentially. Select 35 sessions related to Power Platform and topics you think our attendees should hear. And that's been fun. Like we picked a couple of people.
But don't you think that is, let's say, really important to a conference to, obviously, like there is going to be a main topic and obviously that's going to be BC, of course, totally get it. But having sessions that are not directly related or like slightly out of the main topic so people can actually broaden their horizon. I mean, I try to visit events on the Saturday, so college days or like because they're free, they're rather cheap to go through, but I try to go to sessions during those days that are not in my work field, that are out of my comfort zone, so that I can actually expose myself to new ideas or new concepts. And like recently I went to the Microsoft AI, what is it? AI Roadshow, AI
World Tour.
Yes,
yeah. AI Tour. Yeah.
And obviously AI is hip and happening, but I went to a bunch of sessions that were really deep technical. I'm never gonna do that myself. I don't see myself doing stuff with semantic kernel, but at the same time, just to get better understanding of what's happening in that world and being exposed to new ideas really inspired me to like different ways of thinking. So I truly believe that if you go through a conference, it's really worth your time. Like, don't spend all your time in sessions you don't know nothing about, but pick, 3 or 4 sessions on topics that might not come up in your work right away, but who knows, maybe you get inspired, maybe it triggers you to new ways of thinking. That at least is for me really valuable.
It's purely about awareness, sometimes going to a session and just to be aware of how something works. Or just to know, like a lot of times I've talked to people going, yes, I've never done that, but I did sit in a session where I saw somebody do just that or did. So I know it's possible. Let's drill down a little bit on that. I think last year, I think it was in Color Cloud. Yannick, I went to your session on dual write and I got an awareness and I learned I never want to be involved in a dual write project. So it's all good learning.
Good learning. I'm glad that that's the takeaway from one of my sessions. Yes, but continue on that. I do think it's super cool that they gave us the opportunity to do this, and it's a shift compared to last year because last year they did have a couple of Power Platform sessions at Directions, but the instructions mainly were, if you're gonna bring Power Platform to a Business Central conference, to our conference, your Power Platform topic or whatever you're going to talk about or show from Power Platform has to be related to Business Central. This year, we challenged them a little bit and said, if I'm bringing 18 people or 20 people from the Power Platform world, and I ask my friends that are very good in Power Platform to come to your conference, they will bring Power Platform content. I'm not going to ask them necessarily to learn BC so that they can make it relatable. They will bring their expertise to your conference in Power Platform. It's up to your attendees, your consultants, your people that are there to connect the dots, to look at what they're talking about and what their day-to-day work is, to make sure that they can see how Power Platform could fit the BC world and the use cases and everything. And it took a bit of conversation to get to that point, but they did understand that it makes no sense to invite 20 experts in Power Platform and then ask them to learn Business Central to make it relatable. No, let them bring their expertise and let the audience be smart enough to connect the dots.
Well, and it paid off, because we're sitting here talking about how great this conference was, and that's not something that we usually do. And for me, I think the purpose of conferences, this is like a new trend, and I think that it will keep changing. Like, it's conference like this should be for pushing boundaries and showing you something you don't know, not just to, because now in online, you have all the MVPs you can follow, you have all kinds of contact, you have challenges, you have Microsoft Learn, you can educate yourself in pretty solid way when it comes to most of the topics. What you need is some challenge, something that will surprise you and push your boundaries. And I think that it's a mission accomplished for Directions this year, definitely.
Very much so. And I'm very much looking forward to how this evolves with Days of Knowledge that's happening still next year, or will continue happening, and with Directions next year in November moving to Poland. How much more potentially we can play part? Will there be more sessions, or will there be more attendees? Will the interest grow? It's very cool to see how this evolves, how it has been evolving and how it will be in the future.
And Yannick, you know what's the takeaway for you? Because we're definitely meeting in Valencia, two of us, and potentially the whole cast of this webinar. And your takeaway is to make sure that also Jakub Bajla gets on the stage of Directions next year, because we're specialists in asset inspections, and these guys they have to know about this. Well,
in that case, you will have to submit a session, Jakub. And I didn't see that this year. And I am only responsible, or was this year, I don't know if it will be next year, was responsible to select community sessions. So you'll have to submit a session, and it cannot be a sales pitch. So
I'm known for expecting to be spoiled by people that don't care about me. So that's what it was. All right, guys. It's 46 minutes already. Do we want to keep talking, or maybe this wanted to be a bit of a short? So let's do another round next time, and we'll ask Chris to be in a proper office with a good bandwidth and everything. So I want to thank you so much for sharing your time and your thoughts, most importantly, with us. I really appreciate Directions. Like, they gave us a lot of power here at Resco. We have a lot of ideas, and also, thanks for joining. Thanks for being really open minded, not just when it comes to presenting on Directions, but also sharing this experience. And that's it, pretty much. Thank you very much, and see you around. Feel free to have some final word, whatever you want to say.
Well, thanks for having us.
Thanks, Jacob.
Yes, exactly. Thank you.